Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So it's the presence of the defiant rallying figure, the Grant, the Sherman, the Phil Sheridan, heroes of the American Civil War. Even after a stunning surprise attack, you can regroup and rally and carry the day. And as Phil Sheridan wrote in his memoir, some of the guys who had thrown down their guns were then the key to the counterattack. So you can redeem yourself, right? Think of it also, think of the red badge of courage. The guy runs away, and then he comes back full of fight. The question is the moral quality. Where is the moral quality? I don't think there's any question. It can't be with these al-Qaeda fanatics from Benghazi led by the pasty-faced bureaucrats like Jalil, these slimy figures. But it's rather with some people of actual stature who have raised their country from rock bottom on the Human Development Index, or before there even was one, to the most advanced society in Africa, who built the great man-made river. So that's, I think, all that needs to be factored in. Now let's lift and shift again to the economic situation, because in the background we have a huge European banking crisis, and I stress banking crisis, not a sovereign debt crisis. It's what it was all along. It's a crisis of the banks, and they were able to unload the crisis on the sovereign states. But now, even in spite of all this, all the bailouts, the crisis is now returning. As of about last week, it was clear that many banks in Europe are on the verge of collapse. This is partly due to their derivatives speculation. It's partly also due to the Anglo-American attack, the entire thing that we've seen during late 2009, all of 2010 into 2011, the attempt by the Anglo-Americans to export the depression to Europe and to use credit default swaps and hedge fund attacks to generate this kind of a crisis, to weaken the euro and thereby relieve the pressure on the dollar. As of right now, we have headlines on a week ago, say about the 20th of August, Wall Street Journal, bank woes take center stage. Worries about funding ripple through global stocks as doubts rise over a planned Greek bailout. The Swiss National Bank revealed on Friday that it had turned to the Federal Reserve for $200 million of short-term funding for some Swiss bank. Now, Credit Suisse says not us. UBS says not us. Julius Baer AG says not us. Bank Vontobel Holding AG says not us. So who was it? I guess they were none of those. Well, I'm from Missouri. I'm skeptical. There's also the problem now. Finland has requested collateral for their part of the Greek loan and the Greek bailout, and Greece has granted it. And now everybody else wants the same collateral. This is what goes on when you don't do it with American system, mercantilist, protectionist, dirigist methods. This is exactly what we had under Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover had this, he convinced the bankers to set up a lending facility and to lend it to people who needed the money. The problem is they demanded collateral, so it meant that the people who needed it couldn't get it, and the people who could get it didn't need it. This is the catch-22 of normal banking methods. Those have got to be overridden by powerful, potent, timely government action, yes, state action, to defend the society from the depredations of the financier oligarchs and the neo-feudalists. So, of course, we don't need to go through the catalog. Société Générale, Commerzbank, Deutsche Bank, Barclays Bank, Santander, Unicredito, Intesa San Paulo, all very dubious propositions at this point. And we're now going to have La Rentrée. That starts in about a week. So September song will be European banking crisis. I would expect now a cataclysmic event within the next 2 to 3 months. We're now, that fabulous third quarter payment deadline, which has been the nemesis so often in 1929, in 1987, in 2008. It seems to be September, October are the cruelest months. And this time, can Europe get through it? Washington Post, Saturday, August 20th. Faith in Europe's banks is fraying, and indeed it is. But, of course, there are lots of candidates on this side of the Atlantic to be the new Lehman, and people have focused on Bank of America with some reason. The Bank of America death spiral was reflected in the stock price going down, 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 even on days last week where the plunge protection team was able to get the overall New York market up. The stock of Bank of America continued to go down. Now, this has led to an attempted publicity stunt. This is now Warren Buffett, the sage of Omaha. He's, of course, the guy who stepped in the late fall or late summer of 2008 to save Goldman Sachs with a timely cash infusion. He's the famous value investor. He buys companies when the stock price has been beaten down and he gets a bargain. Well, this is now an attempt to save Bank of America. So they were able to jack up the Bank of America stock price by about 10% in one day. They manage a 10% pop based on $5 billion of infusion. I'm afraid, given the black hole of bankruptcy and cancerous, kited, bankrupt, insolvent derivatives, in particular collateralized debt obligations that we have to assume burden the off-balance sheet of Bank of America, $5 billion is simply a ripple on the event horizon of that particular black hole. So this is simply an expedient. Now, everybody in Wall Street was waiting for Ben Bernanke, the new Godot, to come to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, for this annual confab of the Federal Reserve people and their associated hangers-on, their quackademic apologists, journalistic scriveners, and so forth, hired pens. Bernanke spoke today, and Bernanke punted. He did not announce QE3. Now, a lot of the plunge protection team action and the Abby Joseph Cohen action from Goldman Sachs in the past week, pumping the stock market up, has been based on the idea that Bernanke is coming with QE3. It's going to be a huge cash infusion, so buy stocks. The market is it's still up right now. It's up 145 today on the Friday. One commentator said Bernanke didn't pull a rabbit out of his hat because there is no rabbit. Well, I have a rabbit. Let me propose a rabbit. Right? Whenever I hear these discussions, we have no more policy bullets left. I have one. We have no more arrows left in our quiver. I have one. There's no rabbit. I have one too. And you know what it is? It's the ideally it would be a bill passed by Congress that simply says the Federal Reserve is hereby required to issue $1 trillion of 0% federal credit for 50 years in the form of a rediscount guarantee to states and groups of states that want to build infrastructure, rail, water, transportation, electricity grids, highway systems, and that's a recovery. We'll get to the details in just a minute.